Now, what was it that first got you involved in the JFK research?
Actually, my students started asking questions in my American government course in political science and doing term papers on the assassination. That was my first exposure. And at about that same time, the AIB, Assassination Information Bureau, had opened up shop up in Boston. So they were close to me, and I bought their kit and began talking with my students about it. So I came to it in that way. And then, having had an interest in the intelligence agencies, I began following up on that angle of it myself.
Now, I know that you probably deal with RFK and maybe MLK more than JFK, but what do you really consider your specialization or your strong point in terms of research?
In JFK, I think my strong point is that before I got interested in the case, I had a working knowledge of the intelligence community from my political science background, and that's what really got me into looking at Oswald and all the espionage dimensions of the case.
Why is this issue so important after 3 decades have gone by?
Because it's a determining juncture in American history that it's really telling about whether or not we're a democracy, whether or not our agencies are responsible and responsive. And so the whole political system, I think, very much hinges on the JFK case. And if we could arrive at historical truth, we'd really improve American democracy.
That leads to the next question. It's really kind of a two-part question. Is there any hope of resolving the JFK case in any kind of a conclusive manner? And do you think that there's a need for a special prosecutor or another investigation, one final shot at the truth?
We definitely need a new investigation, and I think the special prosecutor is the way to go because Congress has failed, and we don't want the Justice Department failing again. I think there's a chance we could arrive at historical truth. Whether we can find and punish the conspirators, I can't say, but we need to go after this anyway, because as long as we have myths instead of historical truths, our democracy is going to be in trouble. So we have to do it, and this is the last chance to do it.
Now, there was an outcry for releasing the files after the film JFK, regardless of whether you subscribe to whatever point of view is there. What's in those files that you'd like to see that might help clear some things up for the history of the American people?
Well, my thing in the case has been to focus on Oswald as an espionage agent. Was he with the American government? Was there espionage, U.S. intelligence involvement in the assassination? And I think that those hundreds of thousands of pages of CIA files that are my top priority might shed light on both of those questions, and that's what I'd like to see get out first.
Now, some researchers are a little uncomfortable with this, and you can pass on this if you like. It's a very tough question, and it's difficult because you might leave someone out. But of all the investigators, public and private, who are the ones that you admire the most or have done the most to bring out the most about the case over the years? Kind of a top 10, but it doesn't have to be 10 names. Who do you admire?
I'll have to give you just two, and we all have our peculiarities. Because of my interest in the intelligence, spying, espionage aspect of it, it was when I read Tony Summers' book Conspiracy in 1978 that I really got turned on to the possibility of doing serious research in that area. Secondly, I admire Paul Hoke because he's so careful. As a scholar myself, I like careful researchers, and Paul is the most precise and most careful of a lot of them. So those are really the two people in combination.
Yeah, I've just interviewed him. I was impressed. I read every issue of Echoes of Conspiracy from
it's a great service.
Now, there's a lot of talk about the suspicious deaths and cover-up. And have you ever yourself personally been harassed in any way or threatened because of your research activities?
I've never been harassed or threatened by official agencies or people affiliated with the government, only by people who were kind of misguided and a little bit loony. I think, however, that I've been in contexts in investigating the Robert Kennedy case and the Martin Luther King case where I've been surveilled by the Los Angeles Police Department, although they haven't tried to do anything specific against me.
With all the noise about the JFK files and unsealing the JFK files, and this touches on another subject, why aren't they unsealing the MLK files?
That's my question. It's unconscionable that you have public disclosure of JFK, excuse me, congressional files and not MLK, because it's the same committee and both were prominent leaders and both have serious questions about their assassinations. So I'm pushing for the MLK files as well, as are a lot of other people. I mean, we certainly don't want to say that you can't disclose unless you get a big movie made, I don't think, and we certainly don't want to say that there was a difference in the stature of the political figures. We need both of those files out.
Now, because today is the 25th anniversary of Martin Luther King's death, and that's when this interview is being conducted, there's a special on tonight on HBO, a simulated trial of James Earl Ray. Were you involved in that production in any way?
Not really. The only tangentially in that some people associated with it wanted 5 copies of my book to brief their staff. But you know what? It was the prosecution and not the defense. I think they wanted to defend themselves in case something was brought up on the other side. So the answer is no.
Now, do you have any particular opinion that if Oswald was an intelligence agency, and there's an alphabet soup of intelligence agencies a lot of people don't know about, do you think there's any one that's most likely that he would have been associated with?
I've debated this with my fellow researchers, but I put CIA first, Naval Intelligence second, and FBI third in that order. But I'm smart enough to know that there aren't easy and fast compartments among them, and he could have been working for one or more agencies at different times or at the same time. But CIA is my candidate, given the folks that I identify around Oswald as having predominantly CIA connections rather than the others.
Okay, and this is the final question, and we'll let you go. This is the one I always end with. And a lot of times, because these cases are so complicated, and it's the wilderness of mirrors idea, many times the media who might interview you are not really very knowledgeable on the case. And a lot of the researchers I've talked to come away from interviews thinking, well, they didn't ask me any important questions. So I'd like to throw that back to you and turn it around. If you were me interviewing yourself, what do you wish that they would ask you about these cases in general, or JFK in particular?
Well, actually, the trick is you've already asked me. It is true that the media doesn't do that. They ask the stupidest questions imaginable. Why are you doing this? Did you love Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King? Did you work on their campaigns earlier? What makes you tick? And also, the questions you've asked me about intelligence, usually they come across and say, okay, if it's a grand conspiracy involving all the intelligence agencies, how could they keep it secret for 30 years? And then I have to backpedal and say, no, not all the agencies, no, not even an entire agency, and here's my thesis. So you're being knowledgeable. You've avoided all those questions for me, so I don't have to do that.
Great. Okay, I appreciate that.